Welcome to the amazing world. Today we will learn how industrialization was the reason for change, what new ideas were introduced in society by the mid 19th century. In our earlier topic, we learned about different political trends, the conservatives, the liberals, and the radicals that spoke of social change. Today, let us see how the political trends impacted society during the Industrial Revolution after 1870, as industrialization was becoming popular in Europe and the world. The result was, by the mid 19th century, an industrial society developed in Europe which evolved and brought about social and economic changes in society. New cities developed, new industrial regions, and change of transportation. This was the positive side of industrialization in Europe and the world. But with the positive, there is always a negative or problems that are faced by the society. And what were the problems or the economic problems that were faced by society were mainly long hours of work, low wages, unemployment, housing and sanitation. Where new cities developed, people moved to cities to work, and so they were made to work long hours so that they could increase production. But the profits were not shared equally with the employers. They were paid low wages. Unemployment was because the factories did not work throughout the year, and so many were left unemployed. Housing and sanitation, as the increase in population in these new cities, there was no proper housing and sanitation facilities for such a large population. So these were some of the social and economic problems that were faced in society by the mid 19th century. But the liberals and radicals who spoke about change now demanded for such a change to happen more faster than what they had spoke about in the early 19th century. What was the change that the liberals and radicals wanted by the mid 19th century was what they rallied about right from the beginning of the 19th century, the early 19th century, where they spoke about overthrowing the old regime. The reason for them to overthrow the old regime was mainly because during Napoleon's rule and after that, Europe was ruled by autocracy and conservative governments. They wanted to bring an end to this because they believed that the old regime restricted individual freedom and wanted individual efforts should be encouraged, which would help society to develop. They also believed that change was necessary, even though they, during the Industrial Revolution, they believed that they were the owners of property and employers because the liberals were the middle class people who owned properties. The radicals spoke about keeping private property, and most of them were employers. But they wanted change, or was mainly to overthrow the old regime and give freedom to individuals. Why freedom to individuals? If they had freedom, then this would ensure that if the poor could labor, and capital could cooperate with resistance, then societies would develop in a much better way. They felt that health and education were the most important things to have a good economy because they would gain greater profits even if they owned individual properties and they could share the benefits with the employers. This was what was the view of the liberals and radicals, but it was in this early century, 19th century, that you see the idea of nationalism or nationhood coming in force with Giuseppe Mazzini, who spoke about an Italian nationalist who spoke about unification of Italy. He inspired the unification of Italy with his nationalist ideas of nation. And so, by the mid 19th century, we see that the nationalists, the liberals, and radicals were known as revolutionaries who spoke of new ideas of freedom, the nationalists who spoke about nation and equality so among citizens. These people who spoke about freedom, nation, equality wanted their main aim was to overthrow the old regime by the mid 19th century. As a result, by the mid 19th century, we see that the society was structured under the idea of socialism. What was socialism? Was that everyone in society should share all resources, but they opposed private property and they were called the socialists. Those who spread the idea of socialism were called socialists. Now, why did they oppose private property? Was because they felt it was the root cause for all problems in society. Why did they say that private property was the root problem in society? Because private property was owned by individuals and individuals were only concerned with personal gains while their properties were taken care by employers who worked on them, and these employers made production possible on these properties and gave them profits, but it was seen that these individuals did not share the profits with the workers. And so it was the socialists who said that they should share all resources equally with everyone in society. And so came the idea where a society should, as a whole, control all property to solve the problems in society. This was the idea of socialists who spoke about socialism because they felt that only if society as a whole should control all property rather than single individuals would solve the problems in society. And they campaigned against this. These people or this they were known as socialists and their idea was known as socialism, and this spread in the world by the mid 19th century. So we come across a new idea called socialism that developed in the mid 19th century. To summarize, by the mid 19th century, we see an industrial society brought about social economic changes as well as problems to society. The ideals of the nationalist nation with equality for all citizens became the word of the day. The liberals and radicals who spoke about encouragement of freedom for individuals to help societies develop during this period. It was these nationalists, radicals, and liberals who worked to overthrow the old regime were called now revolutionaries by the mid 19th century. But their ideas soon evolved a new idea of socialism. The new idea of socialism that developed in the mid 19th century was a society as a whole should control all property rather than individuals. Thank you and see you in the next video.